Right. Am I audible, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Varun. Um, we'll start off for today. Okay. So we'll be discussing mostly two topics today: phrasal verbs and phrases and idioms. So we're going to just have like a quick discussion on what this is, and then we'll move on to solving the questions. Okay. So which is usually our format for the session. Okay. I would like to hear from you. Um, I'm just going to start off, but before that, just give me a moment. I think I have to give myself host rights. Just a minute. Okay, welcome back. So we'll discuss a little bit on the phrasal verbs part, and then we'll go ahead and solve the questions, right? So you probably would have already attended the lecture on this. So there are few things that you need to keep in mind as far as the phrasal verb part is concerned, right? So just like the word suggests, phrasal verb, right? Which means it's not just a word; it is more like a verb phrase, which means it's going to have a verb for sure, but something more than the verb as well, right? Usually in the phrasal verb complex, what you have is, of course, a verb, right? Why is it not working? Okay. Yeah. In the phrasal verb complex, you have the verb, right? And then you have what? The second part of this is called what? If you had attended the lectures or have you heard, if you've heard it properly, what is the second part of this called? Verb. And the second one is called adverbial particle, right? If you had paid attention to this. It's called the adverbial particle. Now, adverbial particle here, this is usually, most often than not, in the case of English phrasal verbs, the adverbial particles are more or less all the time, mostly like a preposition, right? So if I have a word like send off, right? So send is your verb, and the second part that you see here, this is off. Off is basically a prepositional construction, right? It's a preposition. So most of the phrasal verbs that we see in English languages, there are other phrasal verb constructions, but for our course, we are not concerned with them. Like there are, for example, phrasal verbs which have three components: a verb and other as adverbial particles. There could be more than one particle, right? We are not concerned with that part for our syllabus. What we are more concerned with is the verb plus the preposition combination. So adverbial particles in the phrasal verb that we are concerned with is mostly preposition. We are not taking up other adverbial particles, which can also become phrasal, which can also be added in the phrasal verb complex, right? So just keep this in mind. If you come across something like that, if you think like this looks like a phrasal verb, it most probably is. But because we are not taking it as of a part for our syllabus, we are just avoiding that. We are only looking at the basic phrasal verb, which includes a verb and an adverbial particle, which is a preposition for our sake. Okay. So that is about the structure of this phrasal verb, right? Now, just like your verb, right? Your common verbs, your action verbs, and your state verbs, phrasal verbs are also marked for tense, right? So another important part about the grammar or the structure of phrasal verb that you need to keep in mind is that phrasal verbs, they're always marked for tense, right? Tense marked, or we can also say they're inflectional, right? So syntactically, they are marked for tense. And if you're looking at it from the level of morphology, at the level of word, then we can say that phrasal verbs are complexes which undergoes inflection, right? So inflection basically means whenever the tense changes, there are different kinds of suffixes get added to them, right? So if it has to show a continuous aspect, then ing has to be added. If it is simple past tense, then t or the ed has to be added to that. So all these kind of inflections are applicable to phrasal verbs because they are tense marked, right? These category of words, they undergo change in tense and aspect. Hence, we'll have to mark it accordingly in a sentence, right? So that's the second point about the grammatical nature of phrasal verb. First is it's a combination of a preposition or which is an adverbial particle and a verb, right? Second is that it is tense marked. Now, third thing, it is more about how, what kind of phrasal verbs can you find in terms of separability, right? So we have two types of phrasal verbs. One is separable and the other is inseparable, right? What are we referring to when we say separable and inseparable? What we mean is that this is a complex, right? So phrasal verb is a complex which is constructed using verb and an adverbial particle. Now, in all the instances where discord or a kind of disjuncture between the verb and adverbial particle is possible, when we can separate the verb and the adverbial particle from the combination, we call this a separable phrasal verb. Okay, so to give you an example, say the phrasal verb call off, right? This is an example of a separable phrasal verb because we can break the combination of call and off here, right? So what do we use? What do we use in this separation? I'll talk about it in a while, but to begin with, what you need to know about separable phrasal verb is that you can literally create you can break them off. You can bring about a disjuncture in their combination, right? So I can either say call off the meeting or I can say call the meeting off, right? So call off the meeting, right? That is also possible. I can say the secretary would call off the meeting, right? Suppose that is the sentence. I can say the secretary would call off the meeting, or I could also say the secretary would call the meeting of. So all we are doing here is we are just separating out the verb from the adverbial particle, right? So when this is possible, then you call it a separable phrasal verb. When this is not possible, when you cannot possibly bring in anything in between these two particles that form your phrasal verb complex, then we call this an inseparable phrasal verb. That's all, very simple, right? And in English, at least, we do not have definitely a survey of how all of this works. We don't have, I do not have it. Probably someone has already studied that, but I don't have a list of those studies with me. At least in English, the case is that the number of separable phrasal verbs are very high in number than the inseparable phrasal verbs, right? Because ideally, this kind of breakage should be possible given that this is a combination at the end of the day, right? Because if you look at the phrasal verb call off, call is also something that can function separately. Off is also that is something that can function separately. When they are independent morphemes and words on their own, ideally that separability should be possible. So following that logic, the number of separable phrasal verbs in English is quite high. There are only few inseparable phrasal verbs because of this reason. You know, the reason is basically economy, right? The principle of economy just makes it such a way that, you know, let's have the ones more which are separable, but the ones that are not, for whatever reasons, maybe the reason is of semantics or meaning, whatever the reason is, the number of inseparable phrasal verb in English is very low in number, right? Just keep this in mind. Which from a learning perspective, then what is important here is that instead of trying to learn all the separable phrasal verbs, which would be very huge in number, maybe it is better for you to approach it in such a way that you have a list of inseparable phrasal verbs, right? Because they are going to be quite few in number. Then it is better that you have some of these phrasal verbs looked up and, have a list of rather than going for the separable phrasal verb, right? So that is one part. Okay. Now, one more thing here. Before I talk about that, before I go to the meaning part, I want to talk a little bit about the structural aspect as well again. So between this call of the meeting and call the meeting off, where we inserted this other particle in between call and off, right? You can have either a noun in between. So whenever you have a separable phrasal verb, it can follow the following structures, right? So first one would be your verb followed by your noun, right? Some noun. The example that we took, call off or call the meeting off, we had the meeting, which is basically a noun phrase. Okay, I'm just going to write it as noun here. And then your adverbial particle, right? This is how it was, right? Now, alternatively, what are the other things that can interfere between the verb and the adverbial particle? You can also have some kind of personal pronouns, right? If noun is possible, then pronouns are also possible. That is how they function, because both nouns and pronouns have almost the same function, right? Functionally, they are very similar to each other. Both have nominal function. So if noun is possible, then automatically something that is a pronoun is also possible. So we usually call them personal pronouns. Personal pronouns would include, and personal pronouns in their objective form. Okay, just give me a moment. I'm writing it down. Pronoun, objective form. Okay. So not all pronouns would be allowed, but what would be allowed is a objective form of the personal pronoun. What are objective forms of personal pronouns? Any idea? Anybody? Objective form. Subjective form. Subjective form would be what? I, you, we. Sorry, not we. I. Even we. I, we, you. He, she, it, they, right? They're all subjective form. Subjective form basically means pronouns that are used as subjects, right? Objective forms means the ones that are used as objects, right? So if I'm going to look at the objective use of I, then what would be the objective use of I?
Me, ma'am.
Me, right? Then what is it for we?
Us.
We would be us, right? What would be it for you? Does you have
Some,
any other objective form? You is you only, right? You doesn't have anything else. You is something which will have the same form in all of the different kinds it can be used. Okay. So that is for you. And then you have he. For he, what is the objective form?
him,
Him, right? For she, it would be then
her.
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 Yes, correct. You're right. Just working on something here. Just a moment. Okay. Then after that, you have it. For it, what would be your objective form? Objective form for it? It, right? There's no change in that. So like you has you, it has it. Okay. Then you have what? The last one is they. What is the objective form for they?
Them.
Them, right? So these personal pronouns are the ones which are going to come up in this gap, right? Whenever a separable phrasal verb is possible, whatever interferes, it could be either a noun, like in the case of call the meeting of, the meeting is basically a noun phrase or a noun as you would like to call it. Alternatively, what you can also have are personal pronouns in objective forms. Okay, not every other form is possible. The objective form, sorry, the personal pronoun in the subject forms will not be allowed, but the one in objective form would be definitely allowed. Okay, you also have a list of what and how the objective forms for each of the pronoun would look like. So this is it that you need to know about the structural and the grammatical aspects of phrasal verb, right? Next part is about the meaning, right? So the meaning in phrasal verb would be, will it be direct or indirect? Does it give you a direct meaning or an indirect meaning? By which, when I say direct meaning, all I'm trying to say is, can you look at the phrasal verb call off, right? Or can you look at phrasal verb like, say, turn down or look forward and decide the meaning of the word based on the meaning of look and meaning of the word forward? Is it possible that you derive the meaning of look forward if you know the meaning of the word look and the meaning of the word forward? Yes or no? Can I understand the meaning of this word? Look forward, the phrasal verb, which is basically. If I know the
No, ma'am.
meaning of the word look and forward, can I guess the meaning of look forward from that? No, it's not possible, right? It is not something that you can derive based on the individual meanings of the word involved, right? This kind of meaning is referred to as idiomatic meanings, and such expressions are called idiomatic expressions. Idiomatic expressions because the meaning is indirect. Okay, you are not able to draw a meaning based on the regular meanings of the words involved to make this complex or this combination, right? The meaning delivered by this phrasal verb complex is idiomatic in nature. Idiomatic basically means indirect. Okay, something that is not literal. We cannot make out the meaning of the entity involved by knowing the literal meaning of the word. This is where the topic becomes a little challenging. So you have to learn the phrasal verbs in context to understand what is its actual use and what is its actual meaning when used in a sentence or used in a discourse or used in a conversation, right? Knowing the meanings of individual words will never help you understand the actual meaning of the phrasal complex, which is why This is considered to be one of the advanced skills of or advanced levels of proficiency in English, right? Your ability to use phrasal verb effectively is a big marker of you being able to use English proficiently, right? Someone who's unaware of the use of phrasal verbs, someone who's not able to effectively use phrasal verbs in conversations as well as writing, wouldn't be considered a professional user, okay, or a proficient user, sorry, okay. This directly speaks to your fluency proficiency in English. So this is a very important topic for that matter, right? Which means you require practice with this. Most of your understanding of phrasal verb, like any other, morphological or vocabulary related concerns and questions deal with, comes from your reading and exposure to the language. Okay, so the more you expose yourself to the language, better your knowledge as well as your understanding of how to use it in the actual domains, right? Whether that is for education or for job or for general cultural exchange, all of that improves only when you are going to expose yourself to that, right? Because only through proper exposure, these kind of proper, actual use of the language would come to you, right? Looking at a few questions in your assignments or a few questions in the exams or graded assignments or practice assignments is not going to take you up to that level of, using language independently and without, without any kind of hesitancy. So keep reading and keep watching, even if you are not finding time to read, make sure that you at least expose yourself to visual contents, right? So that some of these components become easier for you. Phrasal verbs particularly, they are used heavily, right? They're very heavily used in conversations, right? English conversations are full of phrasal verbs, right? So if you're not in the habit of watching or exposing yourself to the language, please start doing that. Otherwise, this is a topic which is going to stay away from you. Okay, you're not going to gain any kind of proficiency with respect to learning phrasal verbs. At least this is a strictly speaking. This is something that you can find more in conversations than in writing. Writing becomes a little formal, but in the conversational English, the use of phrasal verbs are quite heavy. They're very abundantly used. So people who are lazy to read, at least watch something so that you have you have some proper exposure to this particular segment of the language. Okay, so that is all about the explanations on phrasal verb. Let's look at these questions so that we can discuss at least a few of them with you. I have two topics to deal with today, so not many questions you will find on phrasal verbs because it's also impossible to have discussions on this beyond a point. So I would suggest you to keep looking at questions online, and if possible, please have have something like a phrasal verb dictionary downloaded. These days we get very good sources. Some of them are pictorial and they give you explanations in sentences as well as paragraphs to show you how the actual use happens. So if you are looking forward to have some, practice or proficiency with this phrasal verb beyond your exams and other things, then I would recommend you to download a phrasal verb dictionary, right? A latest edition of anyone, Collins or Oxford or even Merriam-Webster is fine. Although I do not know if Webster has like a phrasal verb dictionary. They should. If any of this is available, you can download and look for it. They have good explanations for all phrasal verbs used. Okay. So for the ease of answering the question, I'm just going to copy paste those options in your chat box so that it's easily available to you. Give me just a moment. And once that is done, we can start. Okay. Yeah, I think it can, yeah, you can now see it in the chat. Okay, let's look at the first question then. Please answer from the options that you have in the bracket already. Okay, you don't have to look for anything outside this. Just use these. Okay. So the first question here is, I will pass the form to you, please dash. So when you're answering the question each time, you have to also tell me whether the phrasal verb you're using is separable or inseparable, okay? Okay, so what's the answer for the first question? Look through the options and pick out the one that is suitable.
Fill in separable. ma'am.
What is the answer? Sorry, again.
Fill in and it is separable.
Okay, fill in. I will pass the form to you. Please fill in. Okay, and it is separable. So which means you can bring in something like a noun or an objective pronoun in between, right? So yeah, so you can say fill it in or fill the form in. Both are possible. So it's separable, and the answer is filling. Okay. Right. So what's the second one? You really need to dash this rejection. You really need to dash this rejection.
Get over.
Yeah, get over this rejection. Okay, you really need to get over this rejection. Do we have anything else? Into, pick up, come across, get over. No, okay, get over is fine. And how about its status of separability? Can we separate it or not? Can we say you really need to get this rejection over? Is that possible?
If we add something like with in the end, ma'am, get it over with. Would
No,
that
no.
be still?
Yeah, don't read beyond the sentence. I'm talking about, can I see here you already have a noun, right? The object is already available for the phrasal verb. So we are not adding anything extra. Say I want to just split it open. I have my noun with me. This is about the rejection, right? So if I'm
Oh,
using it, then I can't have the word rejection.
yes. ma'am.
Yeah. So can I say get this rejection over? You really need to get this rejection over.
No.
No. Even if I just change it to it, you really need to dash it. Can I say get it over? You really need to get it over. Again, that is impossible. You still have to say you really need to get over it. Okay. Even if it is an it cannot interfere between this complex. This is an inseparable phrasal verb. We cannot do that. Okay. Then comes the third one. We will dash the matter in tomorrow's meeting.
Look into.
We will look into the matter in tomorrow's meeting. Any other options possible here besides look into?
Bring up.
Yeah, bring up is also possible. Look into is also possible, right? So in each of this case, how about the separability factor? Can you separate or not? Say for look into, we will look the matter into in tomorrow's meeting. No.
No.
So this is also an example of an inseparable verb, right? Look into is also an example of separable verb, okay? Then comes bring up. What about bring up? We will bring the matter up in tomorrow's meeting. How about bring up?
Yes, ma'am. Separate.
Bring up is separable, right? So two different phrasal verbs which fit the context, look into and bring up, but both of them act separately in the sense that bring up is separable. You can split it open. You can say we will bring the matter up in tomorrow's meeting. That's fine. But you can't say we will look the matter into in tomorrow's meeting. Look into is an inseparable phrasal verb, whereas bring up is a separable phrasal. Okay. Right. Fourth one, I dash a giant cheetah hidden in the bushes On my way back.
Came across.
Came across, right? Came across fits the best among the options that we have. Now, again, I came a giant cheetah across, hidden in the bushes on my way back. Possible? No. Right? So, came across also functions as an inseparable phrasal verb. Okay, you cannot have any other segment or particle interfering the verbal complex of came and across. Okay. Now, did you notice this? We have changed the tense here, right? We didn't say I come across, right? Because we know from the context of the sentence that we're talking hidden, right? It tells you that the sentence is in past tense. So when you're filling in the phrasal verb, please be mindful of the tense of the sentence. Make changes to the phrasal verb accordingly based on the tense in the mostly the tense aspect, of course, is not communicated that well, but uh, depending on the tense provided in the sentence, you will have to make necessary changes to your phrasal verb before you answer it, right? So I came across. Fifth one, I dash to meeting with you soon. It's a very simple question. All our email would carry this sentence. As I
Speak up.
Look forward.
okay. What did you say? I did not hear. Varun, I heard you. Vaibhavi, what did you say?
Speak up.
I pick up to, no. We are talking about the fifth sentence. I dash to meeting with you soon. The answer would be look forward. Okay. I look forward to meeting with you soon. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Or I look forward to I look forward to seeing you soon. Okay. These are some common set expressions that you use for closing your emails, but particularly formal emails, right? Most of them need to carry closing remarks, and this sentence is basically it's the classic sentence that you use in most of those professional emails. So, of course, changing based on the various occasions. So you change it to either meeting or hearing or seeing as per the situation, right? This is look forward. And how about its status of separability? Can you separate it? I look forward to meeting with you soon. Even if you remove everything else and say add an it there, can you still break this open? No, you can't say I look it forward. You'll always have to say I look forward to, right? So this is again an example of an inseparable phrasal verb. Okay. Sixth one, the engagement was dashed due to reasons not known to us. Okay, this is easy. The engagement was dashed due to reasons not known to us.
Called off, ma'am.
Called off, right? Called off. Again, here, the engagement was. So the sentence is in past tense, hence we'll have to make the phrasal verb reflect that tense change in the sentence. So the engagement was called off, not call off, called off due to reasons not known to us. Now, can we separate the call off? We already discussed, yes, right? There was an example we were talking about. So here, call off is a separable phrasal verb. We can break open the complex and insert a noun or an objective pronoun to make it separable, right? So call off is then a separable phrasal verb. Then what I thought would be the most memorable moment has dash a nightmare. What I thought would be the most memorable moment has dash a nightmare.
Turned into.
Turned into. Okay, turned into. What I thought would be the most, right? Past tense, reported speech. This is basically reported. You see a reported verb here. So what I thought would be the most memorable moment has turned into, right? Turned into a nightmare, right? Turn into, is it separable or inseparable? Turn into. Maybe think about it in a different context than the sentence. Turn into,
Separable.
it's separable? Okay. Any example with that?
The moment turned into a nightmare.
But that there turned into is still together, no? Where you separate it.
Oh,
So, something, say an exclamatory statement, say something like, what has this life turned into, right? Something of that sort. So say, the the puppy has now, what is this? The puppy, what is that? No, not that one, not that sentence, but yeah, what has this, why am I not getting an example? Yeah. Turned into, wherein you can break it open. Okay, the weather
the
has turned the
carpenter,
place into. Sorry, what is it? What's your example?
something like the carpenter turned it into a piece of art.
Okay, yeah, that way. That's possible. So if you're looking for a, that's correct. Or if you're alternatively looking for a noun, then the weather has or the climate has turned this place into an uninhabitable one. Okay, so this is also one example of using turn into in a separable form. Okay. Then comes eighth one. She should have thought well before dash the offer dash. So this already is in the separable format. So no question of whether it is separable or not. Whatever answer comes here, right? Yeah. If you cannot see the options, please look at your chat box because I've scrolled up the page a little bit. She should have thought well before dash the offer dash. She should have thought well before dash. Yeah, I know you can't see the screen because the network is off. But don't worry, just listen to the sentence, no problem. She should have thought well before dash the offer dash. Options are in your chat. You can find it there.
Turned
nobody?
the offer down.
Turning the offer down. Okay. The answer is turning the offer down. Turning the offer down. Okay, so see, again, we have made changes based on the tense and the aspect of the sentence, right? So these kind of changes are necessary based on the context that we use. Okay. Next question. Amy's school closes by 2 p.m. Could you please dash her dash by then? So this one is also then ninth one is also then a separable phrasal verb. By the way, your answer would fit in this, the one which you were using for the fifth one, no? That one will fit in this answer. Okay, pick her up. Could you please pick her up by then? Right? So of course, phrasal verb, no separable phrasal verb, no prize for guessing that it's already in the separated format. Pick her up by then. 10th one, the puppy looks very sick. Please dash him well. Please dash him well.
Look after.
Look after him well. And how about its separability? Can we like separate it? Please
No.
look him after well? No. Right? So it has to be please look after him well. This is an inseparable phrasal verb, right? 11th one is a separable one. It's already in the separated format. Don't dash this dash before mother. You know that she doesn't like discussing such things.
Bring this up.
Yeah, bring this up before mother. Don't bring this up before mother. You know that she doesn't like discussing such things. Then the last one there, I'm not available for the weekend, but feel free to dash to me anytime during the weekdays. Feel free. There's only one left now in that group. Reach out, right? But feel free to reach out to me anytime during the weekdays. How about reach out? Is reach out like a separable phrasal verb?
No.
No, right? Reach out may sound like a separable phrasal verb. Reach me out. I've heard people using it very often, but it's a wrong usage, right? That's not an acceptable phrasal verb use in the English context. So this is an inseparable phrasal verb. Reach out has to be always used together. Feel free to reach out to me in any time. Reach out to me anytime during the weekdays, right? That's how this needs to work. Okay. So this is just a gist of, what you can find. There's a sea of phrasal verbs in English. Of course, we cannot take up all of them for discussion. We might need to have at least 50 sessions on the same, if that's the case. This is just to show you what are the basic things that you need to remember or understand about the topic on phrasal verbs, and give you some examples of how this functions. Two things very important, keep in mind. One is the aspect of separability, and the second is about the meanings, right? Since they are capable of only giving you idiomatic meanings, one needs to be double sure before we use any phrasal verb, right? Sometimes you probably would think that, okay, this is what look is, this is what forward is. Maybe I'll just put this together and, form a complex and write a sentence. But it could very well be the case that it's going to give out a very different meaning, because look forward as a phrasal verb has a very different meaning than look or forward. So these two aspects, while you're learning and using phrasal verb, please keep in mind. Don't mix up these things. Don't mix up your knowledge or your understanding of phrasal verbs with your knowledge of the meaning of the individual words involved, right? Please do not do that. And also be mindful of the separability factor. See that you do not separate out the ones which cannot be separated, right? These two things should be crucial for your learning part, your understanding part, and implementation. Otherwise, it's mostly practice, right? Just read and listen and watch. It improves slowly, but it will steadily do the work for you. Okay, so don't rush with it. Don't think that, okay, I'll learn some 30 in one go, and it doesn't work like that. They don't stay with you. You won't be able to retain it if that is how you're going to learn it. With any kind of vocabulary acquisition, whether it is phrasal verbs or any other forms, like collocational forms, make sure that you are doing it in a steady format, in a systematic format, through proper exposure to them in a context, right? Do not just take up a dictionary and start reading about it. That's not how it would work. Okay. Or maybe, read a passage and, write down 5 words you don't know and then write the meaning. That is also not a recommended method. The actual method would be to constantly expose yourself to the content, so that, frequent appearance will make you more familiarized with the word and the context in which it is used, right? It's a painful task, but with that comes a lot of rewards. So people who are really looking forward to improve on the language part, please put in some effort. Spend at least an hour or so every day for doing these activities. Okay, we have about 15, 16 minutes left. I'm going to quickly run you through this part on idioms and phrases. And most importantly, I want you to also know the difference between idioms and phrases. Any idea what's the difference between idioms and phrases? This is one question that people keep asking also. What's idioms and phrases? What is exactly the difference between idioms and phrases? So in terms of meaning, do you think are they any different? Both idioms and phrases give you idiomatic meanings like the phrasal verbs, which means they never give you direct meaning, or their literal meanings is not what the actual meaning would be, right? In that sense, they're very similar to phrasal verb, that a combination of the words or phrases used there, their individual meanings will not give you the actual meaning. The meaning is always figurative. Okay, meaning is always non-literal or indirect. In that sense, phrases, idioms, phrasal verbs, they're all the same. But particularly between idioms and phrases, what is the difference? Right? You don't have to be, right exactly on everything. You can do some guesswork also, like what is the difference between idioms and phrases? So you tell me one thing. Is once in a blue moon an idiom or a phrase? Once in a blue moon. Is that a phrase or an idiom? And if it is a phrase, why do you call it a phrase? If it's an idiom, why would you call it an idiom? No? Nobody? That's a very sad state of affairs if you don't even want to try. What is a phrase and what is an idiom? Are you usually like this? Do you not participate in the sessions that you go to? You just silently sit and listen? How did you write the exam then if you did not understand the difference? This was there for your first quiz, I guess. So you're all doing a very superficial level of learning from what I understand. You're not trying to understand things in depth, right? Is the same format applied to other subjects as well? Are you looking at data science subjects also the same way? Don't go into the depth of anything. Just look at superficial things to get some scores and grades and be done with that. Never think about anything. Why is this different? Never ask you this question. Never question yourself or others. If you do not do that, you should start doing that, whether you're students or professionals. Asking critical questions to yourself and others is very, very important. Without that, there is no growth. Okay. Okay, I leave it up to you. I'm not going to spoon feed and give you the difference, idioms and phrases. Please figure out what exactly is the difference, right? So to learn idioms and phrases, there are, like for any other, like I told you about vocabulary acquisition, the major part is immersion, and immersion by exposure, right? Immersion basically means you immerse yourself, you sort of, dip yourself deep into the target language that you want to achieve, okay? In this case, English. If there's anything else that you're requiring, the same technique applies to that as well. You have to find yourself rooted more in the environments which are, which has your target language, right? These days, it's very easy because we have all kind of facilities. The internet is at your fingertip. You can just go online and, watch whatever you want, listen to whatever you want, read whatever you want, right? Data is very free these days, right? All of us can afford some data, some kind of data at least. So do that as a, start off. And then if you really think that you need to work on it, then maybe maintaining something like an idioms diary or workbook would help. Although this is not absolutely important, this is only for people who think that, I need to really employ some of these things in my speech and writing, right? Although keep in mind, using too many idioms and phrases in your writing or your speech could be considered a little detrimental, right? Detrimental because people may not like it. Not everybody would be that kind of advanced users, or maybe people who are more straightforward, who want to just get the business done with you. They probably will not appreciate using too many figurative expressions or idiomatic expressions, right? So they should be very carefully and sparingly used. Do not pepper your whole speech or write-up with idioms and phrases. Use them very, smartly. Use them very effectively. When you think that, whatever you want to convey, talk or write, could be better communicated using an indirect expression than a direct expression, or say if the domain or the circumstance that you are speaking in or writing in does not let you use more direct expressions, then take in the help of the idioms and phrases. But in general, keep in mind that in formal domains, particularly in formal speech or formal writing, try to keep the use of idioms and phrases as limited as possible. Okay, use them only when it can actually do the work better than your direct expressions, right? So on your screen, you have like a set of phrases and idioms. This is basically also about the part on visualization. Sometimes visualizing the phrase also helps you. But I think that would be a little far-fetched. Let's not go there. But for your understanding, there are about, I think, 6 of them on your screen. I hope you're still connected. Okay. So 6 of them on your screen, which gives you a glimpse of what we mean by idioms and phrases in English, right? So cat got your tongue, snug as a bug in a rug, go the extra mile, butterflies in my stomach, to go down in flames, once in a blue moon. These are all various expressions in idioms and phrases. Okay. They're all commonly used ones. So the meanings for each of them are indicated right below each of those expressions, right? Particularly make a note of this butterflies in my stomach. I've seen a lot of people using this to, talk about fear. So butterflies in my stomach is not feeling afraid, or it's not about fear. It's more about nervousness, right? You're not scared of anything, but there's this little, there's this a bit of nervousness that you have. You anyway would do it. You're not going to run away from it, but you're going to do most of the things very hesitantly, right? So keep a track of this difference in the meaning. Once in a blue moon, this is something, an expression or a phrase that you use when you have to refer to an event or a phenomena or a person that appears once, which appears very rarely, or when you want to refer to something that is a rarity, something that very, comes up very less in your lifetime, then you call it once in a blue moon. Okay. Others, I think they're easy. Make and go and go the extra mile and all is easy for you. Go down in flames is also, I think the meaning is very much guessable. Cat got your tongue is basically, if you look at that picture clearly, it basically means if somebody has caught your tongue, then you can't speak, right? So the meaning being people who can't speak up, right? The ones who cannot speak up for anything, this is more like a sarcastic expression to to challenge or to complain about this habit of theirs where they do not speak up anytime, right? This is basically saying that, you are a gormless person. You have no, you're not a strong person. You're a gormless person. You're a scared cat. You can't talk with anybody, right? Okay, the connection is off again. Please wait in a minute or two, it would be back. And then the last part here, to be more proficient in use of idioms and phrases, like anything else, you have to make sure that you use them in your conversations, mostly conversations. Writing, like I said, keep it away a little bit from writing, unless, of course, you're a creative writer or something. But if you use them often in the conversations, once you have had a grip on it, then it better retains, right? The retention level is better in such cases, right? So some simple pointers for learning the idioms and phrases this would be. Of course, again, not very easy, because this also demands a lot of attention from the part of the learner. People will have to really spend some time looking at this. Okay, so I am going to put in some questions in your chat box, and I'm going to see if you can, understand a few of them. Okay. So I'll start with, so I have divided the idioms and phrases, mostly idioms. I'm going to discuss the idioms mostly. Those idioms, I have divided them into various categories. So this is another way you can use to learn them also. You can probably divide them into various categories. Now, by categories, I mean, you can have a look at the idioms that are most commonly used in events related to your day-to-day activities. Okay. For example, that is the case, right? So what are the idioms that people use as a student, right? So what do students do studying, other activities? So you can make a list of such activities and see what are the idioms that would be applicable to each of those activities, right? Or if you're somebody who works, then what are the commonly used work idioms, right? Or something more common in our life, like, referring to time, okay? Time or urgency. What are some idioms people would use to refer to time, or to refer to something that is frequent, to refer to something that is urgent, okay, something that is lax? What are these expressions that one can use in that area, right? Second of all, you can also look at body idioms, right? So what are the idioms that are connected with body parts? What are idioms that are used to show relationship dynamics? Are there idioms connected to nationalities, right? So these are various categories that people can look for. So similarly, to begin with, you can have 4 or 5 categories that is more commonly applicable to you, something that you think you will use in your day-to-day life, right? And instead of looking at like a wide ocean of phrases and idioms, this should be a good way to begin with. Okay. So that is what I have also done, but I have put in like very few here because, of course, not everything can be discussed. So I'll just show you an example of that here. Yeah, the network is back. So quickly, I don't think probably we'll be looking at all of them. If not, maybe in the next class we can begin and talk a little bit. But we have few minutes left. Maybe we should quickly take a look at what these are, right? I think you have some of them on your screen. So look at that. We have work idioms, time idioms, body idioms, relationship idioms, and nationality idioms. Okay. So we'll quickly, look at them, the meanings of them. So a woman's work is never done. This is like a work idiom. What do you think it should mean, or it could mean? A woman's work is never done.
Women might always have something to do even if
Yeah. So,
Right.
if you look at even the modern interpretation, you have working women also, right? You're right, right? The woman always has something or the other to do. Or if you look at the more modern expression, it would be like, okay, you also have working women, and you'll also have the same woman who works the household chores as well, right? All these things are changing a little bit in our times, of course. It's not like it's all done by one person now. Most of us are able to afford house helps now. So things probably are a little different. But some of these idioms and phrases, keep in mind, they're also very age sensitive or period sensitive, as we would say. So it might have originated at a period or age in history where this was probably the case. Okay. So a lot of what you see as idioms and phrases are also cultural. They're also time specific, period specific, region specific, So some of it may not be applicable to our times anymore, but however, the first one, I think to some extent it is still the case, but we see a lot of changes, changes are underway. Okay, so women's work is never done basically just refers to the continuous nature of or incessant nature of work as far as a woman is concerned. All in a day's work? What do you think that is all in a day's work? All in a day's work. No? All in a day's work basically means that we refer to our routine when we use an idiom like this, right? So if I say, teaching is all in a day's work for me. I'm basically saying teaching is routine for me. It's something that I do every day. Okay. So that's the meaning of all day's work. Then you have all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. We had another version of this some time ago. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. It used to be different, but now the times have changed. So we have another version of it. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Right? Basically, talks about your work-life balance. Right? These days, it's a buzzword everywhere, and too many debates on how many hours of work you should put into a week to call yourself a productive, employee, or for the company to decide whether your labor is productive or not. But whatever be the case, whatever be the debates, if you keep working, of course, it's going to directly affect your productivity and everything else. So this is about that. We used to also have a version which said, you all play and no work makes Jack a dull boy. But of course, I don't think there's hardly anybody who exists who has that kind of time to spend on entertainment these days. So this is the modern version of that idiom, right? Fourth one, back to the salt mines. Back to the salt mines again. There is a modern version for this idiom as well. We call it back to the desk. Okay, because we don't work in salt mines or that kind of situations anymore. So back to the desk means back to work. Okay, work again. This expression probably looks from the industrial age times. So it has its own flavor. So that time, because most of the people, the kind of jobs that they used to take up were industrial in nature, right? Something that would require more physical labor and to be present on certain kinds of work sites. So the salt mine references probably because of that. But for our use in the modern age, we say back to work or not work, back to the desk, right? So this is like an earlier version of the back to the desk idiom. Time idioms, once in a blue moon, we already discussed. High time, what is high time?
And it is almost like delayed. Some things are almost delayed.
Yeah, correct. High time means something that should have been done long ago, right? Something for which the time limit is already exhausted and that should have been done by now. So that's high time. High time is like the maximum time that ideally should have been allotted to something. Quick as a wink. Quick as a wink.
Very fast.
Very quickly.
Instantly, right? Instantly, very quickly or instantly. Something that is done or said instantly. Stand the test of time. Stand the test of time. Long lasting, right? Long lasting, or what you call is evergreen, right? That's what is called stand the test of time. So we have expressions like evergreen songs, classic movies, right? Why do we call them classic and evergreen? Because it has stood the test of time. It has remained popular throughout all these time. It's something that has always topped the charts for a long time. Okay, see parts of the body idioms. Achilles heel.
Is it a weakness? Someone.
Yeah, weakness, the
who's
weakest point, right? Somebody's weakness, someone's weakest point is called Achilles heel, right? So lack of punctuality is Joy's Achilles heel, right? And otherwise a smart person, but then unpunctual. This is the Achilles heel, the weakest point. An eye for an eye. An eye for an eye. Vengeful attitude, right? Somebody who's vengeful is called, or someone's attitude when it's vengeful, you refer to that attitude by saying he's an eye for an eye person. Okay, he's an eye for an eye person. He has an eye for an eye policy. Basically means has a very vengeful attitude. Okay, at your mother's knee. What is that? At your mother's knee. At your mother's knee is basically referring to something that you have learned in your childhood, right? Something that you have mastered as a child. So I've learned at my mother's knee. I learned singing at my mother's knee, or say baking at my mother's knee means I learned doing something, or learned doing baking, or learned singing when I was a very small child. As a young child, I probably have started doing that, right? Okay, an arm and a leg, you should know this. An arm and a leg.
Oh, very expensive.
Very expensive.
Yeah, very expensive, right? Something that's very expensive or costly, unaffordable, beyond the league. Relationship idioms, bad blood. I and my family and our neighbors have bad blood. Or there's bad blood between my family and our neighbors. What is that? Basically means you have very, bad relationships, or in the sense basically you're fighting, right? There's huge fight or feud between the families. That's what means bad blood. Okay. Hostile relationship. That is what bad blood means. Okay. Everybody and his cousins. So I went to a marriage and there were everybody and his cousins. What does this mean? I went to a marriage. You can just guess it from your own context. You go to a marriage and there's everybody and his cousins means there's a lot of crowd, too many people. Okay. Too much crowd. That's everybody and his cousins. Fair weather friend. Never trust fair weather friends. Fair weather friend is what? A friend who's only with you when during your good times. Okay. This person is the first person to leave when you're in a problem. Fair weather friend is someone who's with you only to enjoy your good times. That's all. Say uncle. Say uncle is an expression. I don't think you will be familiar with this. Say uncle is basically an expression that refers to a person who is not very strong, a person who can't take their own stand, and someone who acts like a someone who acts like a it's like a yes boss, someone who says yes boss all the time, never has their own opinions. They always surrender to the person who's in hand, right? So that is say uncle, someone who says say uncle in patients, right? Someone who's okay. Another word you can use for that would be someone who's a sycophant, right? Someone who's a sycophant. Sycophant basically means someone who's a people pleaser, right? Somebody who says yes to everything that everyone says because they're scared of being in their bad books. Okay. Nationalities, idioms, take French leave. Any idea? Taking French leave means taking a leave without official information. Don't inform anyone, just take off. That's called taking French leave. Chinese whispers, the reference is to distorted stories, right? So you begin with something, but by the time it reaches the 10th person, the whole story is now distorted. It's a different story altogether. Mexican standoff. It's a stalemate situation. When both the parties involved are powerful, both are not ready to budge, we say there's a Mexican standoff, right? So on certain issues, some countries, they can have a Mexican standoff-like situation where both are not ready to budge and both are equally strong. That's called Mexican standoff. Indian file, this Indian is not our Indian, this is West Indian basically. Indian file basically means something that is put in order, in the sense when it is arranged one after the other in a line. So this refers to order. If something is in good order, you say that this is like an Indian file. Okay. Dutch treat is basically the, when you pay your own bills. Okay. So there's no concept of it's my treat, so I'll pay both of our bills. We go out and we pay our own bills. That's called Dutch treat. That's how Dutch treat happens, right? Where even though it's a treat, we pay our individual bills, right? Last one here, color idioms. Feel blue. Blue usually, see, there is no inherent connection of these colors or the emotions that they represent. It's just more of a cultural, arbitrary association of these colors with the emotions. Usually blue is associated, and this could be different in different cultures. In the English culture, blue is the color that is associated with melancholy and sorrow and sadness. So feel blue basically means feeling low or depressed or sorrowful. Green with envy, green is again something that is associated with jealousy, right? In their culture, of course. So green with envy is basically an expression that you use to show jealousy, right? She went green with Christopher Marlowe. No, not Christopher Marlowe. The university which were green with envy about Shakespeare, okay? Because of course their works were not as popular as Shakespeare's. So jealousy. Red ink is something that refers to deficits. Okay, this is something that is used mostly in the financial sector. When you say that there's red ink on this document, it basically means that you're running a low financial budget, or there's deficit in your financial record. Okay, there's a loss. That's what it means. Fourth one, whiter than white. This should be familiar to all of you. He thinks he is whiter than white. Basically means this person thinks that that person is the fairest, okay, and the most honest among everybody else. So that is whiter than white. Okay. These are few expressions. I have a few more. You have access to this document. You can go through them. So I've only included 4 for each from few categories. Of course, there are many more categories and many more under even the one that I've put forth as categories. So go through them. Of course, you don't, like I said, you don't have to learn each and every one of them. Just learn the ones which you think would be more applicable to your activities and your day-to-day lives to begin with. First begin with them, and then if you want to like progress further, then you can go ahead and learn a few more. Don't try to master all of it in one go, or randomly select a bunch of 50 odd phrasal verbs and phrases and start learning them. Look at the ones which are more applicable to your day-to-day life and activities. So that way you can retain them better. Okay. All right. That's all. I think we've already overshot the time. Please keep practicing on this. And I think before we meet next time, you will already have had your quizzes over. So meanwhile, if you have any questions from any topics or anything, please write to us so that people can address it. Okay. We'll wind up the session for today. I'll meet you next week again. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Varun, go ahead.
We had this workshop last week.
Yeah.
And we're told that we'll find the link in our course portal, but I'm not sure where to get it.
Well, they probably would not have uploaded it yet. We have already informed. They will, I think, maybe by today they'll do it.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.